and share what the beginnings were of your interest in ham radio, and how did this all come about? What what was it that inspired you to get started in this?
Probably in the very, very beginning, I had no idea that ham radio as an activity had even existed. But when I was still, I think, about 14 or 15, I was in the Boy Scouts, and one of our activities to get a merit badge in communications was to learn the Morse code. And the average youngster at that time, at that age, was short on resources. So a good friend of mine that I grew up with and I decided to communicate each other with flags. Boy Scouts used flags, and using the Morse code, we would wave the flag right and left. Left meant dots, right meant dashes, and in a combination of those you had your various punctuation marks. Then my good friend Fritz, that I pretty much grew up with, we decided to communicate further distances, and at night using the dots and dashes. So in my bedroom, which faced east, and in his bedroom, which faced westward toward me, we would send messages back and forth by taking just a table lamp and tapping out the code, dots and dashes. Later we've refined that to putting reflectors behind and using larger bulbs, and we were sending messages back and forth at night. Now this was just prior to World War II. This is along about in 1938 or 39, but the impending confrontation between Japan and the United States was becoming to the forefront. And the neighbors around were suspicious. Here from the Fujii residence, they could see these lights flashing on and off in the code form. And the rumors were flying, and so to reduce that, instead of sending just a light with a bulb, we devised all kinds of experiments. We take these Quaker Oats boxes, which was in the form of a cylinder about this tall, and we would cut out the ends so that we had a hollow tube of paper, and we taped several of those together and shone the light through that. That very much narrowed down the light path, and so the only neighbors or passers-by who could see those at all was just when they happened to drive along the road in the direct line between us. They could see that, and then once they drove a few feet further, well, then they could no longer see. So that was great. That was a great improvement in our clandestine, so to speak, communications at night. Then having learned the Morse codes, which was dots and dashes, then we moved up to actually buzzer systems, and we found that by using an ordinary doorbell buzzer and putting an antenna, wire antenna on it, random length, why then we could send messages back and forth at close range at least with dots and dashes, and very few people they even weren't aware that that was going on. Then later on when we went to high school, then we got into a physics class, and one of the physics professors was also a ham, and he was offhand telling us about ham radio, and so we had already learned the Morse code. All we had to do was answer the questions which were about electronics and generally about communications, and we passed those. Finally, we learned that there was such a thing as ham radio, and we went to, at that time we had to go to Boise because the inspector from FCC only came to Boise, Idaho, in fact, twice a year. And so we went there and passed that, and we got our first licenses, which was at that time a Class C license, and that allowed us to send coded messages over the air. Well,